Welcome to Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth, and this is the next episode in my favorite plugin series, and this video features the Slate Digital plugins and basically everything that is included in the Everything bundle that I like personally. Okay, so let's jump right into my favorite plugins by Slate Digital. All right, to start is the Custom Series EQ. As I recall, this is supposed to be modeled after various types of EQs. So it's kind of like a hybrid where each band is sort of taking the best of the best from different equalizers. And this is a really cool finishing EQ, like polish. I like to put it on the stereo bus. Just a little top, a little low, little mids, and then you can cut some lower mids. It's just a really clean sounding EQ. It's just nice for corrections and just adding a little sparkle. If you need, it's got some high pass and low pass filters, which is useful. And, an output, which is always great for gain staging. Next on this list is the custom series, the Lift EQ, which is basically two simple knobs with a couple different versions of it. The Present and Silky for the top, Big and Punchy for the bottom. I like this a lot. I like to sometimes I throw it on the kick drum just to add a little girth to the bottom, or if you want a little top end on something. It's just really simple and just not abrasive or harsh at all. It sounds really sweet and lush. Okay, so moving on. Next on the list is the Revival. I believe that this is free when you get the VMR rack. This is one of the modules that comes free. And this is another two knob thing that's just really, really cool. It's much different than this Lift, even though it has a low and a high kind of thing going on. But just this has some magical mojo in this, where this thickness, it fattens up the signal and just adds beef. And the top end is just silky and shiny. And it just can really add some sparkle to the top. And, depending on how hot the signal is, sometimes you have these all the way down, and when you bypass it, you'll still just get this really cool vibe out of the unit here. Okay, so next up is the Monster Compressor, which is probably my favorite VMR module, because it's just, I love character compression, and this is just what it is. It is a monster. It's basically based on the 1176 with the all buttons in. And they added some features, high pass filter for the detector. It's got a punch switch and a high frequency detector. So this basically helps you attenuate the top end. So if you're crushing some drums, you can kind of back off the cymbal splash and not kill your ears. And then it's got the parallel mix knob, so very useful. Next here is the Trimmer. This is a very valuable tool. It helps you with gain staging, which is very important, especially when you're mixing in the box. You don't want to have any digital clipping because it's not pleasant. So this is helpful. You can put it first in the chain. If you got a hot signal, you need to back it off. Put it last in the chain or in between to just kind of, get your levels correct. And you got a phase reverse switch, which is always useful. So this is a very powerful one. I believe this is also free, but don't quote me on that. Okay. Next up are the virtual console channels. He's got the channel version and the mix bus. And these are really cool. I like to use these on various things. Definitely, bussing electric guitars down to a stereo and putting this on there, or the mix bus, just depending on what sounds correct at the time. And you can just really crank that drive and get the sound. A couple different SSLs, USA, which is, I'm sure, an API, the Brit N, which is a Neve, Trident, and a tube. So you got a lot of options here, and you can add some more drive. These are very cool. Definitely recommend those. Last in the VMR list here is the VMC, the Virtual Mic Collection. So this whole video I'm recording using the VMS system. So I have the microphone and I'm going through the module here into a U47. And this sounds really cool. Not only is there the U47, there's all these different mic models. To me, it's not really so much does it sound exactly like a U47. It's more that it sounds like several amazing microphones. And so that's very valuable to me. And what I like about this is that you can use it on more than just the VMS system. You don't need this microphone to use it. You can use any microphone and it'll just add some character to it. And even a couple weeks ago, I was mixing a track that was recorded 10, 20 years ago. And the vocal was a little thin and it needed a little body added to it. And I just figured, why not try this? And I threw the 47 onto it and just adjusted the intensity to taste. And it basically remiked that vocal. It made it sound like as close as possible that it was recorded through a U47 or the FG47, whatever you want to call it. So it's very cool. I've thrown this stuff on instruments. It's kind of like, it adds some character. So that's what's really cool about all this Slate stuff is that it's asking to be experimented with. You can do different things, especially you can change the signal flow here and you can kind of understand what things sound like in different chains. Especially there's always a discrepancy of, should you EQ before you compress or should you compress before you EQ? And really there's no rules. It's really what you're trying to achieve. And this VMR system is really cool for that because you can just switch it in the chain and hear what it sounds like and you can educate yourself. Okay. So moving down, the FG Gray, which is basically an SSL bus compressor, as far as I know. I'm not the biggest fan of those, just because I feel like they kind of do the one thing, but they do the one thing pretty well. And Slate did a good job at adding features that I felt this compressor needed, like the high pass filter and a parallel mix knob, because that's kind of what was lacking on the original unit. And this makes it really versatile. I think that he added some sort of transformer output stage or something. I don't remember if it was Neve or whatever, but this definitely has some mojo to it, more so than an original SSL. And so this is really cool. I use this for the stereo bus sometimes for various things. Same with this FG Red. It's modeled after the Focusrite compressor. I don't own a Focusrite one. I haven't used it a lot. So it's not like I'm really directly comparing this to the Red compressor. But again, this has a really cool vibe and it doesn't work for everything, but it's definitely one of the contenders that I throw up when I'm looking for a bus compressor. And another one is this virtual tape machines. You can, model 16 track or 2-track, different types of tape, 2 different tape speeds. You can adjust the bias. You can even go in here in the settings and adjust the calibration and noise level and bass alignment, all that. Hiss, you can get real crazy with it. And what's cool about this is a lot of times I threw this as last in the chain, on the mix chain, and I put it on at the very beginning and I mixed through it. And every single time when I'm A-Bing stuff, when I get close to the end of the mix and just making sure that all my bus processing is in order, every time I bypass this, my mix always just disappears. And it sounds like it's not a mix anymore. And I put this back on and it's glued together nicely. So this is definitely a must-have. Here's another one, the Slate Fgx. A lot of people say that, they're waiting for the update for this and whatnot, but I think it's really cool. This is definitely a very special limiter. It does things that a lot of other ones don't, and especially for a beginner, this is a very powerful tool to have in your hands. I never really use the compressor. There's so many other compressors out there, especially the VBC ones. I don't even need to look at this, but what's really cool about this limiter is you can put it in this constant gain monitoring. So basically what that does is when you crank your your limiter. So you push into your limiter and making your mix louder. This adjusts the volume so that when you bypass it, you're listening to if there's any artifacts being added to your mix, and so that you can adjust these settings to kind of retain the dynamics and the punch and attack and the low end that was in your original mix. But then you can make it louder and, as loud as you want for a master with this button, which is really cool. And then when you're printing, obviously take this out so it puts it back to the correct level. But this is definitely a really cool limiter. It's got some good metering. You can adjust some settings in here. You can adjust the ceiling, the bit resolution, all that. Okay. I spoke about this many times before. I really like the Verb Suite Classics reverbs. I just really dig all this stuff. They did a good job at modeling all these hardware units. I mean, there's a couple things that I would change. I think that this EQ section is not really usable at all. I would have added some high and low filters in there, because personally for me, that's what I'm doing more so than actually boosting or cutting parametrically. But hopefully they'll update that down the line. A lot of people complain that they lost, like with the 480, they lost the interface because it looked like a 480L remote. So, that would be something down the line that I would maybe like to see, is maybe if you change the units, maybe the interface changes slightly so you feel like more comfortable if you're very familiar with the original unit, but it's not that big of a deal. Another one is the repeater. I've been getting into this a lot more. I used it in my reggae mixing, and you can get some really cool dub delays going on. And this basically can do everything. You can do digital delays, analog delays. It's really cool for slap vocals. You can link things, and it's a really versatile delay. So definitely suggest checking that out. Last on the list here is the SSD, which I use. I'm not a fan of the trigger plugin, really. It just doesn't really work for me. I tend to like to use Massey DRT to get my MIDI tracked from the drums. And then when I have the MIDI laid down, then I use SSD to read that and play it back. I think I have the whole pack here. I really love the Blackbird stuff, David Bendith, Terry Date. I like the classic signatures. They're pretty cool stuff, and they're named by certain bands and genres so that you can sort of quickly pick some stuff. And then when you have a drum set loaded, you can go down to the mix here and just adjust the drums to taste. You can rebalance the drum set. You can adjust certain attack settings here, velocity curves, all that. You can really tweak it. I try not to get too crazy with that. The thing that I spend a lot of time is I make sure the MIDI is correct, like the velocity and the dynamics are as natural as possible, so that when I'm playing the samples back through Slate, that it just sounds natural, and basically I'm just balancing ambience things. So thanks for watching Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and also the newsletter on my website. I'll check you out next time.